NC State is ready to close out the regular season at home. Hi, everyone. Noah Fleischman here, host of the Wolfpacker Show, presented by thewolfpacker.com, which covers NC State for the On3 network. Sign up right now for $1 for your first week to get all of our exclusive content on the website. Signing day is approaching next week. Transfer portal coming up shortly after that. It's a busy, busy time. In football, basketball is underway. You can get all of our coverage right now for $1 for your first week at thewolfpacker.com. North Carolina travels to Raleigh this weekend to take on the Wolfpack. Bill Belichick will make his NC State, debut in the NC State UNC rivalry. Something that I'm not sure if he really knows what he's getting himself in for. 7:30 kick on Saturday. The fans will be ready to go at NC State. They are going to be into this one. They've been looking forward to it. They look forward to every year, but this one's got a little bit of different juice to it with Bill Belichick coming to town. NC State has won four straight over the Tar Heels. A chance for Dave Doran to win five straight, get their seventh win of the season, have an opportunity to make it an eight-win season in a bowl game coming up later in the year. NC State, coming off a big win over Florida State, kind of a fluky little situation. Two straight muffed punts ended up allowing NC State to score the, game sealing touchdown with just over 2 minutes left in the game. But they won 21-11 over the Seminoles. The touchdown was not the difference per se, but it was the game sealing one, the one that made everyone feel really, really good inside Carter Finley Stadium. The Wolfpack has now won six of its last seven over the Seminoles under Dave Doran, and everything's just going well right now at the end of the season. Banged up roster the Wolfpack has, but they've got Hollywood Smothers back. They've got Justin Jolie on the field again, making plays, scoring touchdowns like he scored that one at the end of the Florida State game. So this is a big week for the Wolfpack, and let's preview the NC State versus UNC with Inside Carolina's Spencer Haskell. Now we're joined by Spencer Haskell from Inside Carolina. Spencer, what's going on?
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here, Noah.
Yeah, for sure. North Carolina comes in the Carter Finley Stadium to round out the 2025 season for the Tar Heels, who have not had the year they wanted with Bill Belichick in year one of that experience. When you look at this first 11 games, seven losses, what is your just initial takeaway from what you've seen?
So, I mean, don't get me wrong. The North Carolina has not had a successful season by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, you go all the way back to all the pomp and circumstance from the Labor Day game with TCU, and then just getting, flat out embarrassed, and then they come back and they beat two lesser competition teams in Richmond and Charlotte, and they move to 2-1, and then they play their next power conference game, and that was kind of what we at Inside Carolina kind of had as like the measuring stick game when they went down to Orlando and played UCF, and they got absolutely embarrassed by a bad UCF team under a first year of Scott Frost, and that was kind of when I think that was kind of when everyone realized like, okay, this might be a long season. And then that was further cemented by them getting their doors blown off by Clemson at home off of a bye week the next game after that. But since then, since that point, I mean, yes, they're 4-7 as we sit here, but they've competed in pretty much all of their ACC games except for the Clemson game that they've been in positions to win. They just haven't been able to make the plays to get them across the finish line, and that's why they sit with this 4-7 record.
For sure. It's not something people expected from the Bill Belichick team, but he obviously comes in thinking that he won't lose games, kind of like how Mac Brown did. But that's how the year's gone. But we've seen everything off the field with him and his relationship, but what's just been the Bill Belichick experience, so far for UNC?
Yeah, I mean, he came in, and I'm younger. I'm only 22, so I saw him in New England, and I saw the famous the press conference clips, and him just being not exactly, I guess, friendly to the media. I would say, and don't get me wrong, that there's been a lot of that. Um, but for the most part, he's honestly been a little funnier than one might think. He'll try and work in a good one liner here or there, but when he loses, he's not pleasant to talk to or to be around, and he won't give you much. And then just aside from that, there's been all the off the field drama this year, whether it be actually I won't get into it, but there's been a lot of off the field distractions that have kind of circled around this program that have also made Bill a little more disgruntled than he might usually be.
Definitely. But, on the field, it's not been the year, especially on offense, that UNC wanted to have. They brought in Gio Lopez from the transfer portal, and he's only throwing for 1,600 yards, 9 touchdowns, 5 picks, 64% completion rate. Not the best, what you want to see from a quarterback. What is your just, analysis of what Gio's been able to do?
Yeah, so I, I personally um I think that Gio gets a lot more he catches a lot more flack than I think that he deserves. I think that he's put in a pretty tough position this year with this staff and this offensive coordinator, Freddie Kitchens, who we presume is not going to make a return next year. And then he's got a first year quarterbacks coach that really doesn't have any real coaching experience. So you're put in a situation like that, and then he's got a bad offensive line. He's got an offensive line that can't really hold up. They can't protect him all that well, and so if you got a bad offensive line and you've got a bad coach, and then you're set up for failure to begin with. That's a bad combination. With this, I will say he's coming off of his past two games, Duke and who kind of played 2 games before that? Why am I drawing a blank?
Wake Forest.
Wake Forest, thank you. He's coming off of his best two game stretch at Carolina. So I think he's trending upwards, and I think that it's because they've kind of let him play more to his strengths. They've put him in the shotgun more. They've got him out on the run more. They're stretching the field. That was kind of his rap coming from South Alabama was, yeah, he's got a good deep ball and he can run. There were Sam Howell comparisons to when he was coming in, and then at the beginning of the year and throughout most of the year they've had him under center running pro style offenses that you just wouldn't put a mobile quarterback in. People were saying, if this is the offense you're going to run, you should just put, Max Johnson or somebody that, isn't, as mobile or as much of a threat as Gio is. But these last two games, they've rolled him out more, they've moved him more, they've let him stretch the field more. And his stat lines aren't exactly, um, you know, don't pop off the page, but he's graded out to his best two games so far this season, which I guess is a small moral victory for this Carolina offense. So we'll be interesting to see what happens on Saturday. Especially, I watched the Florida State game last week. I saw what how much Castellanos, another mobile quarterback, struggled to put points up on this NC State defense. So should be interesting.
Yeah, it is. That's one thing the NC State's defense has been able to do. Even with the battered secondary, been able to slow quarterbacks down, and it worked with the 21-11 win over Florida State. But we've talked about Gio. You talk about this offense not being the best, but it's got some playmakers on the team. Jordan Shipp and Demond June. What have you seen from those two guys, kind of leading the team in receiving and rushing?
Uh, yeah, we'll start. I think there's definitely more to talk about in the backfield. Demond June was a guy that true freshman, a guy that no one had, kind of circled on their depth chart to as a guy to watch out for coming into the season. Everybody thought it was going to be there's this Benjamin Hall kid, a transfer from Michigan, or Davion Goss, who was Amari Hampton's backup last year and had flashes, and then all of a sudden, this number 12 guy starts, getting the bulk of the carries against Richmond because, as one might expect, if you remember back to his Patriots days, you couldn't really pick out a Patriots running back who was going to be, uh, I would always avoid, New England's Patriots running backs in fantasy just because you never knew, who was going to get the bulk of the carries, who was going to score the touchdowns, and that has been the case with the Carolina running backs this year. I think those three guys kind of get the bulk of the carries, and it doesn't seem like there's any rhyme or reason to it. There will be games where like Syracuse Demond June looked like he was the best player on the offense, had I think he had more total yards than Syracuse just by himself. And then the next week, they don't give him the football. There's been, no consistency as to, why they're feeding, Benjamin Hall one week while they're feeding Davion Gauze the next week. It's actually really interesting. Somebody asked Bill in a press conference last week, kind of about um, exactly that. Like, hey, you've got, three or four running backs. Like, is there any method to the madness in terms of like feeding the hot hand or why you're giving this guy more carries compared to last week? And it was after they had just lost to Duke, actually, and he was not in a great mood, and all he said was I don't know, which was a great answer. Um, but no, Damon June otherwise was a guy that, he's been a nice surprise for Carolina this year, although they've struggled horrendously to run the football the past couple games, which has been tough for them. Um, but then on the receiving side, I can't say enough good things about Jordan Shipp. Um, he's a true sophomore, super, super, super talented. Um, He's kind of the guy that they lean on the most. He's probably the biggest vocal leader on the offense as a true sophomore, which is pretty impressive. And yeah, I just can't say enough good things about him. Really good possession receiver, super talented. Is kind of the guy that they always, make go speak to the media after losses. He always gets up there, says the right things, the super super mature things. And he's had to go up there, after some pretty ugly ones, like he spoke after TCU and Clemson, and when you would expect a 19, 20-year-old kid to be just super frustrated, and he sounds like he's an adult, which has been super impressive. But yeah, and it's nice to see him. He scored a couple touchdowns throughout the season. Had a nice little sequence last week. Look to see him build on it and see if Lopez can keep feeding him the ball. But we'll see.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, UNC has statistically one of the worst offenses in the ACC, but their defense is the better unit. It's ranked seventh in a bunch of categories, actually a better, side of the ball. What have you seen from that? Obviously, you know that, Bill Belichick being a defensive guy would have a defensive team, and it's kind of what UNC seems to have been leaning on so far.
Yeah, so it's the defense this year has been a surprise. I think that was the side of the ball that people were more concerned about coming into the season. And after they give up, 42 points to TCU game one, people were even more speculative. So, but like you said, they've been strong. They've been a really nice surprise. In particular, their front six, their front seven has been pretty good. They've got I'm not sure where they stand now, but I think going into the Wake game, um, both of their edges were, I think, in the top five in sacks in the ACC with Melkart Abushaude. That's a tricky pronunciation if you need it for Saturday, and then Tyler Thompson. They've been two really good pass rushers off the edge, and I think that has kind of set up the rest of the defense for success. Because if they can speed up the quarterback, get to him, make him uncomfortable, it makes everybody else look good. And then they're two transfer linebackers, Andrew Simpson, a kid from Boise State, and then Kamori House, a guy that came with Steve Belichick from Washington, have been pretty solid. They've been pretty solid ACC linebackers. And then in the secondary, Carolina's best player on defense is their cover corner, number one, Thad Dixon, who he just came back, missed 5 or 6 games with an injury after Clemson, but came back against Duke. So he's a huge, huge added bonus in the secondary. And then they've got another super talented senior in Will Hardy at free safety. And I do think that they are, I don't know if they're as good as they might look. I think that it might be a result of the offense just slowing the game down and giving the defense less possessions to go out on the field. But they have been solid. They've held, a couple of the, considered stronger quarterbacks in the ACC to, less than 200-yard games with Mensa last week with Duke, and then Chandler Morris with Virginia. They both made those guys look, I guess, human, if you will, which none of us expected, which has been a nice surprise. And they're definitely going to be, and they've got another tough task this weekend with CJ Bailey. So we'll see if they can keep that trend going.
For sure, NC State has won the last four. This rivalry's been pretty lopsided toward the team in Raleigh the last few years. What do you think UNC needs to do coming into a road environment, for the last game of the season to come out with a win?
Yeah, I feel like that's a pretty That's a loaded question because there have been much better Carolina teams that have gone into Raleigh at night and gotten blown out. Um, so, uh, but I don't, this Bill Belichick coach team has played in hostile environments, all year. Probably saving the best for last. But what concerns me with this coming Saturday is State's ability to score points, is the NC State offense. And I mean, UNC for their standards, put up an offensive explosion last week with their 25 against Duke for their standards this season. Um, but I just worry about because NC State and CJ Bailey are going to score points. They are going to air it out. They're going to stretch the field. They're going to put points on the board. And my concern is North Carolina's ability to keep up with that and to match that because this North Carolina offense is not one that's built to win in shootouts. But and then you pile that in with they're playing in by far the most hostile environment they're going to play in all year and it could be I fear it could be a long night on Saturday for the guys wearing blue. But we'll see. You play the games for a reason, I guess. Should be interesting.
That you do. UNC's offense, second to last in the league, 19.3 points a game. NC State ranks ninth at 29 points per game. So if it gets in a shootout, it favors NC State. If it gets into
Yeah,
a defensive game, it probably favors
it,
Carolina.
it it's just so interesting to me because it's almost like the scripts are flipped from years past because you're so used to seeing Carolina with the offense with the firepower and NC State which is the defense that can shut it down and it's been interesting to see this year for sure. Well, I'm excited. I mean, I like defensive football, so it's been fun to watch at times for UNC this season, but at the same time watching the punter trot out on the field 15 times a game has also gotten pretty old pretty quickly.
Definitely. I guess we'll see what happens on Saturday. Spencer, appreciate you hopping on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Appreciate Spencer for hopping on the show, previewing everything about UNC and what they've gone through with Bill Belichick at the helm. NC State's a 7.5 point favorite, according to BetMGM, the place that we're using all of our lines this season. As you know, we've teamed up with them for the 2025 season. When you join BetMGM, you have access to a variety of parlay selection features like same game parlays, live betting options, and more. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3 and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here is how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign in using bonus code ON3. That's ON and the number 3. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code ON3 when you sign up. Make this college football season one for the history books. Make it legendary. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers are not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER in the United States, 877-8-HOPE-NY, or text HOPE-NY to 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, and 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer is for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3 and get your $1,500 first bet offer today. So as I said, NC State's a 7.5 point favorite. It's prediction time on the podcast, and I'm going to say the Wolfpack covers. NC State, Dave Doran knows what he's doing against UNC. They have won the last 4. I believe it's 8 of the last 11 meetings against Tar Heels have gone to the guys in red and white. I think he's going to make it 5 straight. Give me NC State 42. No, NC State 45. We're going to go with 45. So 45 to 13. I think this is a game NC State will get off and going hot. Dave Doran's going to want to score a lot of points in this one. He's going to want to send a message to his fan base, and he's going to want to beat Bill Belichick. Every team that's played him has literally went into the approach of saying they want to prove him wrong, and so far they have. Carolina, 7-loss team coming into the year. NC State has a chance to give them their 8th loss of the season in Raleigh. So 45-13. NC State over North Carolina. That's where I'm going on this one. We'll have full coverage on the Wolfpacker.com of the big rivalry matchup on Saturday night, 7:30 on ACC Network. Before we get out of here, NC State men's soccer into the Sweet 16 for the second year in a row, hosting UNC Greensboro on Sunday night at 6 p.m. We'll have coverage of that on the Wolfpacker.com. You can also head out to the Dale Soccer Field, just right behind Reynolds Coliseum, and you can check out the Wolfpack as they look to make the Elite Eight, continue their run to carry in a couple weeks for the Final Four. It's a big week. Men's basketball was in Hawaii this week. Women's basketball in Mexico. Well, full coverage of their returns back to the continental United States. Men's basketball heads to Auburn for the ACC SEC Challenge. Women's basketball goes to Oklahoma. We'll preview both of those next week on the Wolfpacker Show. Big week in the ACC SEC Challenge on Wednesday, December 3rd, which is also signing day. So we'll have a preview of that as well. Appreciate you for tuning in. NC State, North Carolina, coming up at 7:30 on Saturday. Make sure you tune in and check thewolfpacker.com for all your coverage in-game, post-game, everything you need right there on thewolfpacker.com.